Hello, we are going to learn today how to analyze a poetic text. First of all, what is poetry? Poetry, of course, is a text made of words that are chosen carefully and that are usually written in lines. The most important elements of a poetic text are rhythm, sound, imagery, and form. Let's focus on rhythm now. Rhythm is the way beats, that is stresses, are arranged in a poem. And this can be fast or it can be slow. And rhythm can be measured, we'll see that in another video, through meter. Let's see an example of a fast rhythm. The pickety fence, give it a lick, it's a pickety fence, etc., etc. You can hear that the rhythm is quite hammering, quite fast. This poem is quite slow, on the contrary. When the night begins to fall and the sky begins to glow, you look up and see the tall city of lights begin to grow, and yet there is some sort of pattern in the way sounds and beats are arranged. As for sound, this is the second element of poetry. Sound is what is the way sounds are arranged in a poem. Okay, and we have some sound devices such as rhyme, repetition, alliteration, onomatopoeia, and assonance. Well, rhyme is usually words that end with the same sound, and in English they are not written necessarily in the same way. For example, hat, cat, bat, but also cloud and aloud, and this is very common in poetry. Rhymes can be arranged in different ways. You can see, for example, the AABB pattern, okay, the ABAB, ABBA, ABCB. Well, we'll see that when we go into the heart of the matter. And a very common device is that of repetition, okay. You can have words that are repeated, phrases or lines in the same poem. And of course, repeating a word or a sound reinforces certain ideas. Alliteration is on a sound level, the repetition of the same sound, the same consonant sound at the beginning of a word or of a series of words. For example, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Of course, here we have the word, the sound P that is repeated. And when we have a vowel that is repeated, or actually a vowel sound, then we have assonance. An old, mad, blind, despised, and dying king. Okay, Eind, despised, which is not written in red, but it should be, and dying king. Okay, the same sound, the same vowel sound. And another very common sound device is that of onomatopoeia. Okay, onomatopoeias are words that represent the actual sound of something. Bang, bark, crack. Okay, and they usually appeal to the sense of hearing, to the sense of sound. A very important element of poetry, after the elements of sound and rhythm, is that of imagery. Okay, what is imagery? Imagery is the use of figurative language, which usually appeals to the five senses. And in this way, and also by using figures of speech, the poet can better convey his ideas. Some rhetorical devices or figures of speech that we commonly use and that are frequent in poetry are similes, metaphors, and personification. Okay, the simile and the metaphor imply the comparison of two things, the simile with the words like or as, the runner streaked like a cheetah, and the metaphor without the terms of comparison, okay, without using the words like or as. For example, the winter wind is a wolf, is not like a wolf, okay. And personification is a very special kind of metaphor where we give human traits to something that usually is not human. The fourth important element of poetry is that of form. A poem usually is written in a different way than a piece in prose. Poems are written in lines, March, a blue day, and a group of lines altogether form something that we call a stanza, and stanzas are something like paragraphs for prose, that is, they separate ideas or situations in a poem. For example, this poem, March, has 2 stanzas. Okay. When we are done reading a poem, we should ask ourselves what is the author's purpose or the poet's purpose. Okay, usually a poet writes a poem because he wants to say something, sometimes to share feelings, sometimes simply to tell a story, like in ballads, sometimes to send a message, so a poem that has something strong to say, or sometimes there are simply poems that are humorous, for example, like nursery rhymes. Okay, finally, what do we do when we have a poem in front of us? Well, we read it and we try to find out the meaning out of it. To find meaning in a poem, you should focus on some details. For example, the title. Does the title provide any clues, any ideas about the topic, about the mood, about the purpose of the author? What is the rhythm like? Is it fast? Is it slow? What kind of sound devices are used? What kind of imagery is used in the poem? And therefore, what types of figures of speech and how do we interpret them? And so, all in all, what is the author's purpose according to us, and what is the kind of mood that we get from reading this poem? This is what reading poetry is about. We're going to find some elements, some good poems to analyze together.